Well, 2025 marks some milestone moments for the Honolulu Rail Project. We get an update from HART CEO Lori Kahikina.
Plus, we're focusing on downtown Honolulu, talking to one of the major developers in that area. What's next for the neighborhood? Spotlight Now starts now.
You're watching Spotlight Now with Ryan Kalei-Suchi and Yunji Denise on Hawaii News Now. Have questions or comments for our guests? Join the conversation in our Facebook live stream. Spotlight Now, where Hawaii comes to talk.
Well, Lohan, thanks for tuning in here to Spotlight Now. It is our first show in the new year. Welcome and thanks for tuning in here. We always, of course, like to engage our viewing audience in the conversations that we have with our guests. And so we invite all of you to please head over to Facebook, enter your questions in the comments section, or you can always scan this QR code and engage with our guests directly.
Yeah, we love to hear your questions and comments for our guests. And we want to welcome in Lori Kahikina, the CEO of the Honolulu Authority for Rapid Transit. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on your first show, 2025.
And a lot of changes coming, or a lot of developments in the new year for the HART project. So let's talk about how things stand right now. Overall, how do you think it's going?
Very positive. There's some major milestones that are happening right now. We were Roger, DTS Director, Roger, John, and myself, we were doing a press conference yesterday to announce that we need to shut down for the next 2 weekends, this weekend and next weekend, to do some migration work between segments 1 and 2. So progress is being made, so it's exciting.
Let's talk a little bit about that if we can, and talking about the shutdown that's happening. What exactly is happening during this time in this transition, and why did you feel like you needed to shut down operations completely, and this is something that couldn't be done maybe, say, during non-operational hours?
Sure, good question. So during non-operational hours, we call them the engineering hours, between when the rail shuts down at night and reopens the next morning, so maybe about 7 to 5, they have been doing already testing. But we're about 80 to 90% done of all of the testing. Now we need to migrate over the communications between segments 1 and 2. When we were doing segment 1, we didn't have to worry about revenue service. People weren't on the train, so we didn't have to worry about shutting down. But this one, communications gave us some complications in segment 1. So lessons learned. Let's not rush it and try to squeeze it in between 7 and 5. Let's shut down for the whole weekend, get everything done appropriately, safely, and then we migrate between segments 1 and 2 and we bring them up together so that everything is working smoothly. So it was more precautionary, safety, and make sure everything is working smoothly and to have minimal impact on the commuting people of the public during Monday through Friday work hours.
So let's talk about that segment 2, because I know so many folks have been looking forward to it. There really is an expectation that when segment 2 does go live, that there will be an increase in the ridership. We have not seen ridership really go up all that much, and largely that is because of where the rail goes.
Exactly.
It's not hitting the airport just yet. But this segment, just for folks who are not familiar, segment 1 goes from Kapolei out to about Halala, right?
Stadium.
We're going to the
Yes.
now sort of defunct stadium. But now we're going to go all the way to Middle Street. So what is the timeline for that, and what is your expectation for what that will mean for the project?
Sure. So we are planning on, for segment 2 right now, we are in the testing phase, as I mentioned, and then in summertime, we're actually going to do the famous trial running like we did in segment 1, take a couple of months to do trial running starting in the summer, and then hand this over to DTS before the end of the year. And it's still up to them when they want to open, but we're hoping to have this segment, the second segment, running before the end of the year. And as you mentioned, it does include Pearl Harbor and Airport. We're hoping there will be an incremental increase in ridership. Nowhere what we're expecting once we hit downtown, but I think it'll increase. To your point, the first segment is not going exactly that's conducive to ridership, but once we have the second segment and third, I think you'll see an increase.
If you can just talk a little bit more about the integration with the airport, because it's such a major hub, I imagine that it's unlike other stations because there will be a little bit more ridership with riders coming in and off. Was there anything done differently with that station in particular to prepare for more travelers and time that needs to be spent in those transitional periods?
Not necessarily for thinking of the riders transition period. It's still on every 10 minutes that those trains are going to come. But as far as integrating within the airport, yes. So there's elevators, and the passengers can come straight off of the train onto the platform with their wheeled bags and then get into the airport without having to go outside the station and come back. It's integrated within the airport.
And of course, this is the segment that ends at Middle Street. And for a time, you know, especially during the Honolulu mayoral debate, there had been all this talk about maybe just capping the project at Middle Street. Tell us a little bit about the integration with the bus. And I know that this is really the city and not necessarily your purview, but you're all working together.
True.
So what are you expecting from that part of the route?
I can't say it as eloquently as Roger and John, the DTS director and deputies, but you're right. When people were thinking of, let's just stop the train at Middle Street, it doesn't make sense. If I can remember what Roger and John have shared with me, yes, that's a transit center, but once everyone gets off the train, gets onto the bus, they're going to come right out onto, get into Dillingham, and they're going to be sitting in that traffic there. And there's not a good way to get into that station for the buses. And so Roger made it very clear, we have to continue, we have to hit those people in Kalihi and get to the downtown area. But as far as the integration of the bus, yeah, that's a better question for DTS. So that's only a temporary stop until we can get to downtown.
Yeah, so if you can just talk a little bit about that, because it's going to be a temporary stop, you're going to still have all this influx of people that will essentially be the end of the rail for now. Correct. As the rest continue on. What does that look like in terms of how long that's going to be the temporary stop? I mean, I know this project has had a few delays.
Fair enough.
but what is, what does that look like for that station? And if you can just explain to people how that works, because in my mind, I think, okay, this is the end of the station. Does the train just go back the other way? Like, how does that segment work, and how are you creating this temporary end of the line here?
Yes, very good question. So there's a tail track or end track. So yes, the trains are going to have to reverse and, well, I shouldn't say reverse, switch tracks and go back towards the other direction. So there's when you look at how the station is configured, there's a little bit and beyond that. And so people might be wondering, why is that there? It's so that the trains continue past the station and then can come back across on the other track. And it is temporary, to your point, Ryan. The next segment is going to open in 2030, 2031 time frame. So for the interim, there's a huge pedestrian walkway from the Mackay side to the Mauka side. They'll have to get off, get down, and then get into the buses and then continue on their route into downtown.
And as you focus on this second route or second segment, you're already, of course, looking at the third.
Yes.
We have seen some work happening. If you look at that corridor between Topa Tower and Aloha Marketplace, there's a lot going on there. Yes. Tell us a little bit about that sort of pre-work and what you found.
Sure. So there's construction on Dillingham and in downtown, those corridors. What we're doing is removing the utilities out of the way for the columns to come down. The work is progressing very well on Dillingham. Non is our contractor. We're about 2 years into that contract. They are still on budget, on schedule, but we still have a long way to go. We have 2 more years to go on that contract. Coluccio is our contractor in downtown. They've run into some hiccups over there. They're a little bit behind schedule, but it's not impacting the overall schedule of the project. But what you're starting to see in the downtown, they're starting to button up and finish off that area. So people might think, oh, some relief now. No, because the next contractor is coming behind. Once the utilities are out of the way, the columns are going to be built by Tudor Perini. And the way they're going to construct things, it's not going to be as linear like we did out on the west side and even the airport segment where it went from west to east. They want to hit the road running. They're actually progressing much quicker than I anticipated, and they're going to have two starting points, one in Iwalei and possibly one in Halekauwila. So they're going to be starting here and then going in both directions to meet up. So it will have a major impact on commuters.
When you plan for that, and you have to, obviously you have had experience with what's happened already on the west side of the island, how are you communicating that with drivers, with businesses in the area? Because I think for a lot of people who've lived in town, they've seen this from afar. They've never felt the impact themselves. Right. What can we expect? I mean, will there be more road closures? Will there be things rerouted? I mean, what are some of those conversations happening about how this will directly impact those commuters who utilize this area?
Absolutely, there will be road closures. There'll be cones up, just like Jersey barriers, like you see on Dillingham. Communications has already been starting to go up because of the utility relocations, and we're making it clear to those businesses and residents, it's not going to stop. Please don't think that once Colucho and Non are done, oh, you got some relief. No, contractor is coming right behind, so it's going to be like this for the next 7 years. And for those who are a little upset at not being able to turn left down in the Dillingham corridor, wherever the guideway is coming, that will never come back. Because
That will never come back.
You will never have that back because you have the medial strip and the guideway columns there. You will never be able to turn left into driveways again.
Oh, I think a lot of people thought that Costco was going to change.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
But not
Major
there. But not
Costco is
there.
fine.
Okay.
Costco is fine. The major intersection with there's two of them, I think, with the traffic lights. That will be fine. So right now you're able to turn left. You'll still be able to turn left.
Got it.
But
the driveways.
driveways, yes. you
That
won't
will be a
able
big
to.
difference.
That will be a big difference. So we're already hopefully training people now. But Ryan, to your point, I actually got, so we're in Ali'i Place. I actually got an announcement from Ali'i management that, hey, Hart is paving right there on downtown. I'm like, wow, that's a few blocks away from our building. So I thought that was very proactive of them to send a message out that, yes, it's a few blocks away, but the commuters, you're coming in off of Nimitz to come into our building. So messages are getting out.
Okay, we always like to engage the public, and thank you to Penny Adams who wrote in. She says there's an article on the front page of the newspaper about a lawsuit filed by Hitachi against Hart. Please elaborate. So what Penny is referring to is a $324 million lawsuit against Hart, claiming breach of contract and unjust enrichment. I know you can't comment specifically, but can you give us a little bit broadly your response to that?
I can.
suit?
I think some of the comments that were in the lawsuit were disingenuous and misleading, but I do want to stress that Hitachi and Hart and DTS, we still have to have a very strong working relationship. They are our operator of Skyline, and so we still work very collaboratively. When we were doing the press conference yesterday, Hitachi was there, and we're hugging each other. So you still need to get the work done, still work together, hand in hand. But let the lawsuit, let the attorneys and the executives handle that. And we tried mediation. We tried, but we couldn't come to an agreement. And I do want to make it clear to your viewers that the reason this lawsuit is coming out is because I could not agree to certain things that they're asking for us to pay for. I take tax dollars very seriously. I treat it as my own, and I'm not frivolous about how we spend it. So unfortunately, we couldn't come to an agreement in mediation, but that's why there's the lawsuit, and we'll work together to come to an agreement. But just please understand, we are still working very strongly together and still have a good relationship with them.
I mean, but does that at all worry you because of the existing relationship that needs to happen and the critical role that Hitachi plays in this? Does that at all concern you about whatever the ruling may be from this lawsuit of any damage in relationship, but also just the partnership moving forward as they, them being the operators for this project moving forward?
Maybe a tiny bit of concern, but the way they're acting towards us and we're acting towards them, no. We still work collaboratively together. When the lawsuit of STG came out, it was the same thing, right? Okay, the attorneys and the executives have to come to an agreement, but the staff level, the working level, you folks continue on as if nothing is going on. So I don't anticipate any issues going forward.
I want to get back to the construction of that third segment, because I think that a lot of people, as Ryan was saying, when it was going out on the west side, we didn't really feel it. It was pretty far away.
Right.
And it was in spaces that were much more open. And now as it creeps closer into downtown, we feel the impacts more and more. You had always said in the past that the Dillingham corridor was going to be the most difficult. Do you still think that's the case, or do you think downtown will be worse?
No, I still feel Dillingham is the worst. What we're having to deal with is, I think I've said it on the Spotlight show before, is I keep saying spaghetti noodle nest, and one reporter said, I want you to open up the ground and I want to see the spaghetti. No, it's not quite like that. If you look at the drawings, what drawings we have, it is every utility is in there and it's all integrated and not where you think they are. And so that's why Dillingham is so difficult. We have shallow utilities. They're in places where we don't anticipate them to be. I mean, downtown, we're still going to have some of those issues, but it's not as much as Dillingham. And also on Dillingham, we're having to underground the major HECO lines, the 138, 46, and 12. We don't have to underground as much, especially there's no 138 in the downtown corridor. It is tighter than Dillingham. Dillingham is still tight, but there's just more utilities in the Dillingham than the downtown area.
Okay, so the worst is almost over?
No, we still have the guide way to come in.
Okay, well, we're still in our pain point.
Yes.
We continue our conversation with Lori Kahikina right after this short break. Stay with us.
From the moment you wake up.
Hawaii News Now brings you the stories that impact your day.
With more on the breaking news, we go live to Casey Lund.
Ready with the push alert? I'm going live. We have an update to the breaking news we brought you this morning on Sunrise.
Okay, guys, as soon as this wraps, toss to Mahia.
And we've been covering this story all day.
Now we go live to Mahia for a new development.
Stand by for breaking news. They just captured the suspect.
That's confirmed?
Yes, sources just confirmed it.
The news you need the moment it breaks.
Here on Hawaii News Now.
First alert traffic is like always having a helpful passenger right next to you.
There's a crash up ahead in the left lane.
When we see a backup, we'll tell you live on TV
That doesn't look too good.
and send an alert to your phone.
I'll type, you drive.
First alert traffic on TV, streaming, and on the Hawaii News Now app.
Keeping you and your ohana safe.
Spotlight Now with Yunji Denise and Ryan Kalei Suchi. Connecting you with newsmakers from throughout our islands. Going in depth with Hawaii's leaders. And taking your questions live. Spotlight Now, where Hawaii comes to talk.
Hello and welcome back. We're continuing on our conversation, focusing in on the Honolulu Rail Project with HART CEO Lori Kahikina. Lori, thanks again for being here and for joining us this afternoon. I want to talk about your role specifically. You have been in this role for a few years now, and we have heard obviously about some of the conflicts and disagreements that have happened with you and members of the HART board. Those seem to have been resolved, but I wanted just to get a pulse of where things are at with just how you feel on the job and your relation with the HART board.
Sure. I actually would like to thank you folks. You folks brought the issue to light. And actually, Natalie started at City Council, and then Mahealani interviewed me afterwards. And without you folks, none of this would have come to light on what the difficulties that my team and myself are dealing with at the project. Things have subsided quite a bit. Board chair, I'm actually thankful that the board has voted to, instead of meeting every 2 weeks, it's stressful for us, not just the meetings, but there's a lot of preparations that need to go into getting the documents ready, and we need to post it for sunshine law reasons a week prior. So it creates a lot of work for all of us, and so the board has agreed to have the committee meetings and the board meetings on the same day, so we only meet monthly now instead of every 2 weeks. It's a trial. It's a trial. That's how they used to do it. Then they broke it up, and now they're trying to go back together. So we'll see if we can continue that way, because it sure alleviates a lot of time-consuming preparation for us.
Yeah, and how would you characterize your relationship with the HART board chair? We know that Colleen Hanabusa is staying on in that role. Have you resolved those differences?
Well, I think we both have the same goal. We want this project to get to where it needs to be and the best way possible. And so right now our interactions is at the board meetings, and it's been professional. The tone has come down quite a bit. Natalie kept bringing it up that it was very contentious. We don't feel that as much. It's much more subdued. There's new members now. It's a different dynamic, so things have improved.
During this time when these conversations were happening and things were being brought into the light publicly, one of the things that we also was brought up was positions and job positions and vacancies that many were skeptical to jump into because they were uncertain of your role. Now that you do have a contract and you are in place here and helping to continue to lead this project, have you been able to fill some of those vacancies and talk about some of those concerns that the board had that ultimately led to some of the disagreements?
Right. No, absolutely. And we've been able to fill quite a bit of positions, and even at the higher level, We try to bring in certain people, but if it's not a fit, we don't keep them because we have such a good team right now, whether it's Heart City staff, consultants, everyone seems to be rowing in the same direction. And so if we have someone that's coming in, the personality, they could be the smartest, best technical person, but if the personality doesn't fit with the rest of the team, I can't risk that. We had a manager that, you know, he was a little bit abrasive, and I lost 4 good team members because of that. So right now, I nip that in the bud. It's like, if you're not quite gelling with the rest of the team, you're not going to stay. And so we've been able to your point, especially now that they know there's continuity in my contract and the rest of the management team, we have been able to fill key roles. But even if we have pukas, I tell my staff, it always works out. There's always a gem that you don't realize. Yes, we lost our project director, but if you look, the deputy project director stepped up, the next person under him stepped up, and now he's the deputy, and it's working out great. The dynamic seems to be much more cohesive. So people come and go, but things work out.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a lot to manage. And one of the terms of your contract that we had talked about the last time you were on was to take some management courses, if you will. And that did sound like that could be beneficial, but also kind of cumbersome on your schedule. Pretty rigorous program. Well, how is that going? Have you started, and what have you learned?
No, so I have until the end of this year to pick a program, and I'm glad that the board has decided to give me a little bit more leeway in the language, because they were first going to direct me to a specific program. And when we were negotiating, my attorney and I with them said, you know, this is an 18-month program, and it takes away, I already put in over 50, 60 hours a week. I'm not complaining, I love it. But this program would mandate me to take up almost one whole full day out of the working day, because they're in the mainland, so I'd have to do prep time. It's online and in person in the mainland. So I said, I need flexibility to find something that doesn't impact as much my role on Heart. It's important. I have no problem doing it. I'm looking forward to it. So I have to do my homework, find several programs, and present it to the board, and they have to accept. I also want to be very conscious of the cost, because it is in my contract that the board pays for it, but technically that's taxpayers' money. And I just had our first executive management meeting this morning, and I was so proud of one of my team members. He's like, you know, once you take that class, Lori, monthly, can you come back and hey, what did you learn? Because we can all learn from it. I said, you know, that's a terrific idea. I like that.
Right, and that's a way to sort of leverage those tax dollars, right, to get more bang out of that investment.
Correct.
I want to go back to just the overall nuts and bolts of the project itself. And as you continue to make your way through downtown and going into these areas, have there been something, anything unexpected that has come up? If you can talk to us about some of the troubleshooting that you're going through right now, and just any words of caution that you may have for those who live around the area. Yes. Because we know that in the past you've described, you know, just the infrastructure of the area. What are some of the things that you're learning as you continue to move this project as it inches closer to town?
Sure, and I think I may have mentioned it on Spotlight before. There's your known unknowns and your unknown unknowns. For the known unknowns, we knew we were going to be encountering utilities where they weren't supposed to be. I think I've mentioned we've had utilities that are only inches below the surface. They're supposed to be 3 feet minimum. So I just want the public to understand that when we encounter these things, don't panic. We knew we were going to do it, especially gas lines. Gas lines tend to have a fear factor with people, but the gas company immediately responds, or Board of Water Supply. When we hit their line, they're out there to help, and we coordinate with them. But this is what I'm talking about, known unknowns. We knew we were going to hit this. The unknowns, well, we're not quite sure yet. So we haven't hit that yet. We've been pretty lucky. In the Halekauila downtown, EV, we have encountered some EV, but we anticipated that too. So as soon as we hit it, we're very respectful of it. We contact the consulting parties, the families who this is their relatives, and of course SHPD. So we have a contractor that makes sure that we're treating it with respect, and SHPD decides whether we're going to intern in place or we put him in a separate location, and maybe we bring him back once the station is constructed.
I want to ask you about the federal government and the change that we're going to see. We're pretty close to January 20th. Of course, we'll have a new president, a new party at the helm. Are you at all concerned that having, Trump in office as opposed to Biden could mean any differences for you at, and this project, given that we are so reliant on federal dollars for it?
Not too much. We've been checking with congressional leaders, and we were able to, as you folks know, we were able to receive 2 tranches last year with the amended full funding grant agreement. When we amended the FFGA, we got $125 million, and right before the end of the year, because we awarded the CCGS contract, FTA gave us another tranche of $250 million. So there's still some monies left, but they have assured us, FTA has assured us that it's already accounted for and it should not be touched, but there's always a chance, hopefully it's a minute chance that the remaining funds could be removed. But I don't anticipate anything negative happening to the remaining tranches that we're in our contract with FTA.
As we look ahead, and there's obviously a lot that you're managing as the rail continues to move forward. But of course, the larger question is, what is the ultimate end for this project? And in the past, you have come on here and said, we know it's ending in Kaka'ako, but the ultimate goal is still Ala Moana. Yes. What other developments have happened? I mean, what other conversations are maybe moving forward that might lead to that possible extension to Ala Moana Center? And how soon do you begin thinking and planning about that while also managing the current plan?
Really good question. So when we had to, when CCGS was awarded, the cost came in higher than what we budgeted for, but the funding that has been coming in, the GET, TAT, has been higher than we anticipated, and also our borrowings has been less. So we were able to save on our financing costs. So there's going to be a little bit left over after we do our work on City Center Guideway Station. So that money is going to go towards Ala Moana. It's not enough. So we are not eligible for additional FTA funding on the New Starts program, but we could possibly get additional federal funding. Of course, eventually we would love to have the conversation with the state legislators that could we extend the GET-TAT not just to Ala Moana, but get us to UH, get us more west. But we're not ready for those conversations. Board needs to approve those conversations before we go out. And what else was I gonna say? But anyway, I know, we did get FTA's approval to start working on the utility designs past Kaka'ako to get to Ala Moana. We have designs, but they're old, so we need to dust them off, refresh them. But FTA feels that they own all of our funding to make sure the base contract with them is fulfilled. But recently, just within the last month, we've had our quarterly meeting with them, and it goes back to the tranches. It's not just the money, it's their confidence in us again, that they're willing to release the funds, which we haven't gotten since 2017, but even more so now, the trust in us that, okay, we feel you have the funds to get to Kaka'ako. Yes, go ahead and start using some of that excess funds to work on design work to get to Ala Moana.
And if I can just jump in for clarification, if you do and you are able to extend to Ala Moana, what does that route look like? And what is the conversations with the landowners in those areas? Because right now it's kind of in limbo. You're not sure if it's going or not. Right. There's a possibility that the master plan was for it to go there. But obviously, it will impact 2 more blocks as you moved, to that area. So, what is that conversation like with those areas?
So the route hasn't changed. The route is always still to Ala Moana. So those conversations have started years ago with those property owners. In fact, Ala Moana is the opposite in that, hey, we really want you to make it to us. They want to fully integrate to the mall. So it's more positive than negative. But those businesses, those owners have already been notified, and they understand we're not stopping. We're not stopping. We have got to get to Ala Moana again, not for shopping, but that is the major transit hub of the entire island, where everyone gets on, transfers to get to another bus to get to their destination. So this isn't new. If we were to actually stop, that would be news to them that, oh no.
And when do you have to make that determination?
As far as
if you go forward or if not, when you talk about having this excess of funds, which sounds so unusual for this project because all we've heard for years and years is that it's over budget. So, what percentage? I know you can't give me a dollar figure at this point, but do you think that the money left over will get you half to what you need, or 10% of what you need? When we think about the excess,
less than half.
Okay.
Less than half. So we still, and that was the other thing I was going to mention, is we do have the option on the city TAT. We can bond that. Before we couldn't really bond. We do bond on the GET TAT, but that ends in 2030. So we can't do long-term bonding on that because everything needs to be paid back. So I want to stress again, this project is going to be paid off by the time we finish. Unheard of in a major infrastructure project across the nation. But we right now, all of our bonds will be paid off in 2030. If we need an extra funds to get to Ala Moana, there is an option. We would of course need BFS approval and city council, city administration approval to bond on that city TAT to get us extra funds to get to Ala Moana. That is an option.
As we close up our conversation, I just want to ask broadly, again, we've had many conversations with you, and it seems that despite all the progress that's being made, this project, of course, still comes with criticism. It still comes with skepticism. There are people in the community who are still very anti-rail. Yes. And as lawsuits come up and you're having to navigate through all these other obstacles, what is your continuing message to the public? Why is this project so important, and why are you continuing to be so committed to being the face of this project when there still is so much questions about its future in Hawaii?
I think, and with your folks' help, the rest of the media's help, the temperature of the public has shifted. We still have naysayers, as you mentioned, but still at least once a week on my way here, I stopped by and somebody stopped me and said, "I see you on TV all the time." I said, "Yeah, you were able to turn this project around. Thank you for what you are doing, and please continue the work." So that keeps me going. I think majority of the public out there, they're very grateful in what we're doing. We're trying to, we had something handed over to us that we needed to fix, and we're really trying to do things right going forward. It is costing a lot of money. I can't change the past, but my team and I going forward are trying to do the right thing. I think it will have a positive impact, especially once we get to Airport Pearl Harbor, once we get to downtown, once we get to Ala Moana. We have to get to UH. I think you'll see an increase in ridership and people will make more use of it. We will never be operating in the positive or even at cost. You don't see that anywhere in the nation. This is a public service. The bus, the handy van, the fare box isn't going to pay for the expenses. This is a service that the city is providing to the community. So I think it's an important project we need to do.
And still holding out for UH.
Still holding out for UH. We got to connect the 4 campuses.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Lori Kahikina. We appreciate you joining us on this first show of the year. Of course, the rail project will be moving through downtown, and that's the neighborhood we are going to focus on after this break. Christine Camp is here, a major developer in that area. 8 different projects happening in downtown Honolulu that she's managing. We'll talk to her right after this break. Welcome back. We are speaking now with developer Christine Camp from Avalon, Hawaii. She was Hawaii Business Magazine CEO of the Year in 2024, and she is joining us now to talk about all that is happening in Doho, which is the signs that I keep seeing everywhere. Kind of like Soho, but it's downtown Honolulu. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So exciting. You have had a lot of news in just the last few weeks about projects happening in the downtown area. Want to get into those projects specifically, but let's start more broadly. Why downtown?
Well, why not downtown? Actually, I started my career in downtown Honolulu, Bishop Square, right where American Savings Bank Tower was. And I know how wonderful it was to have so many people gathering in downtown to make business decisions, to have social events, and it was just an amazing event. And so in my twilight of my career, if you would say, I wanted to make sure that we gave that back to downtown. And I'm not the first one. Of course, there's a lot of news about our investments in downtown, but we studied downtown for quite a while. And since the pandemic, there's been a resurgence of investments that are coming into downtown. AC Hotel, for example, it's a Marriott hotel and an amazing success. There are bakeries and restaurants and shops, daycare, all these things, senior care centers, they're all coming to downtown. You're just not seeing it because they're under permitting or they're under construction. And when I saw all this, I thought, well, why don't we help with that effort? What can we do if there are opportunities? And just as we were thinking it, the opportunities came with Davies Pacific Center. Then just as we were done acquiring Davies Pacific Center, Walmart closed. And while some people might say, well, my goodness, Walmart closed, now what? Downtown is really dying. And I thought of it as what a wonderful opportunity to revisit what downtown should be and make that into a really a community asset. And it's with that in mind, we decided to reinvest and reinvent the vision of downtown and help everybody see it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how this transition also started, going back to the pandemic, right? And a different sense of the working from home, a lot of businesses moving out of downtown, which have led to these vacancies in these areas. Talk about some of the things that have had to happen in terms of just the structural changes to some of these buildings, some of the things that you're going to have to do to turn office space into these livable units, and some of the things that you're working through to assist in this transition.
So a thriving community has to have components such as living, working, entertainment, parking, and safe and clean areas, right? Where when you walk out, you feel safe. And I think during the pandemic, when people were forced out of downtown and it really became emptying out of downtown, it didn't feel safe because you had homeless that were gathering. You had things that are associated with crime, possibly. But what's happening over the last few years since the reopening is that the city has stepped up and cleaned up the areas. I think there's news of some homeless feeding facilities being moved out of Chinatown. Some special services being moved out of Chinatown so that it's not all concentrated in one area. And then we got additional security with the city putting in additional cameras, and they're not quite done yet. They're putting in more eyes, and safety is really about more eyes. So that's talking about the safety. But what am I doing, and what are the things that are needed? When you look at existing buildings that are maybe emptying out because people are working more from home, although that trend is changing. If you look at the news, everyone's coming back to work. FOMO has set in, right? Fear of losing out. So it's just missing out. And so it's an opportunity for us to revisit whether we should all look at that as all office or would be other uses. Now, other uses means housing, right? Homes, apartments, condos, and then it will be hotels, it will be shops, restaurants, and entertainment venues. All that requires a change in permitting. Our permit reviews, the laws have not caught up to revisiting and revitalizing the existing buildings. And so that has taken some time, but what's really encouraging is that the city has stepped up and made some changes. The legislature has stepped up and passed the law related to adaptive reuse. The governor has proclaimed that affordable housing should be allowed to do adaptive reuse. And so all these things are happening all at the same time.
Let's take a look at this map that you helped us with, if we could. I don't know if
Yeah, can you see that?
If we can see it. And there we go.
Oh, okay.
And so this is just to give folks a sense of all that you are working on right now. And if you can briefly kind of tell us what we're looking at. Obviously, this is downtown Honolulu, and a lot of different colors on this very, very robust map.
Right. So downtown is really split into two districts. One is downtown Honolulu, and the other is Chinatown Historic District. So when you look at this, the yellow is 4th Street Mall. The pink are all the residential projects that are coming on. The red are commercial. Orange are hotel. Blue is Hawaii Pacific University. The university is a big part of the resurgence of downtown and bringing people back. So when you look at it, I think the historic area, there's a lot more laws and rules that have to be changed to allow development of that area to happen. So what I see is much more happening in downtown. These are not all my projects. This is all the others that have started. Ours is only in this one. It didn't quite catch on to the Topa Towers that we just acquired. We did 4 acquisitions, total of 8 buildings. And another owner has total of 9 buildings. Another owner has 4 buildings. Another owner just, bought another building and is looking for another one. Why are they spending all this time and investment into downtown? Because it is the right place. It has all the infrastructure. We have built environment. All we need is the new investment and the new energy to bring the people back.
Let's talk about some of the newer investments or the projects that are currently a little more active now. You briefly brought up the Walmart space. What can you tell us about that? We know that there's some exciting things happening and just around the corner. If you can share with us what it is and the timeline for that projection.
Sure. We have 8 projects in the works for the next 7 years. We've already finished the first project, which was bringing Hawaii Pacific University's Science Hall. It's a 4-story building, $27 million in total investments, and it's for the science program for the university's 5,000 students, or 5,800 students. So that's already done and opened in September. Now our second project is the Walmart building, which is right adjacent to the Science Hall that we built. Walmart building is 87,000 square feet. Now, if you think about 87,000 square feet, that's over 2 acres on 2 floors, plus 454 parking stalls. We're now bringing pickleballs into the facility with food and beverage and activities. And so we will have our first phase that we're opening January 20th as a soft opening, so it will be open to the public. It will be 6 courts first. BYOB until we have our liquor license, but it will be an indoor pickleball facility because what's the problem with pickleball in other areas? Well, you can play for free, but they don't have lights. Why? Because people complain. Why? Because it's noisy. It's not noisy just because of the pickleball sound, but people just really enjoy socializing when they play pickleball, right? And so it's a fun time. So we decided that we would make that venue available in an air-conditioned setting where you're not subject to the weather and you're not subject to noise complaints. So we're now, when it's completed, it will be 15 pickleball courts and about 20,000 square feet of restaurants and shops that will support that environment. And we hope that the community will come out and support it.
Yeah, that is very exciting,
Yeah.
and very exciting to activate that, because I know when that had been an empty space, there had been talk of turning that perhaps into self-storage, and I just thought, oh, that will be just a black hole in that area. So it's exciting to think about people actually having foot traffic down there,
Absolutely.
because that is obviously what is needed. I'm interested, across the street, it was just announced that Ross is going to be leaving on January 10th. That's right across the street from your project. What do you see as a potential for that space? We had a person write in just a little while ago and say downtown needs a mall. How has shopping changed, do you think, over time, and what do you think is needed in that kind of a space?
So, while people might be sad about having Ross's leave, that's a huge box, right, that has been there for discount shopping. And I think of that box as an opportunity for us to revisit bringing more activities back into downtown. The owner of that property is a seasoned developer, with a lot of capital, and they have a good creativity and an amazing team. In fact, that map that you saw was done by their team, Luke Williams. And so I expect that they will be seeing something new. What I would like to see is something that's synergistic to our entertainment hub that becomes the entertainment core. One of the things that we want to do as a big investor of downtown is to bring festivals and outdoor activities and outdoor, just it could be a Valentine's event, outdoor candlelights. It could be pickleball demonstration outside. It could be, Shakespeare in the Park right outside our facility. And that is all part of that complex, which is the most visible and accessible location in downtown. So I'm kind of excited about the possibility. While some people might bemoan the negative, I'm an opportunist and I see opportunities everywhere. When you see a big box like that, that's a canvas just waiting for new programming.
One of the things that downtown has a reputation about, or maybe something that a lot of people are skeptical about going downtown, is parking. As someone who has owned a business downtown before, that's one of the questions we get all the time. Where do you park? There's no parking. How do you dispel some of that as you try to plan for these developments and try to attract people in there, knowing that Hawaii people do like to drive? How do you navigate through those conversations of people who feel like there's no parking in downtown and it's going to make it difficult to attract the people that you want there?
Right. Until Lori Kaikina is done with her rail in 2031 to downtown station, which is a direct route from the airport, I think that parking is very important. Parking is going to make or break your business. I mean, I hate to tell you this, but I mean, people who are in business will tell you. And we control 1,800 parking stalls between Davies Pacific, Topa, and the Walmart building that has, a total of 1,800. These are all walking distances and very safe and clean. So we think that it will be very affordable and accessible for locals to come back to downtown at any hour. And we want to be open in the evenings as well. Because, downtown, they shut down at 6 o'clock and the parking garage is shut down at 6 p.m. or at late hours, and they're not quite open on the weekends. We aspire to be accessible to the locals. And if you're driving to downtown, you'll know where to park.
Oh, that sounds great. One of the other things that people are concerned about with downtown, you did mention homelessness and the cleanliness of the streets. One of the things that you're working on is this downtown development district, or is it improvement district? It mirrors the Waikiki Improvement District. Tell us a little bit about this idea. This essentially is a pool that the business owners or that the property owners pay into that then can be used for improving the community. Tell us how this would work, how much it would cost, and what kind of feedback you're getting.
So just as clarity, it's not Avalon's program. It's all the others who have seen this event, where there's a rumor because you see some homeless people that, there's crime because you saw one article about downtown and think that downtown is not safe. So I think there's a PR that needs to be changed because actually downtown is much cleaner than it was during COVID. People just haven't come back yet. But yes, the Downtown Improvement District, right now there is a 4th Street Improvement District for those owners who touch 4th Street. And they share in the cost, but it's not doing enough and it's not broad enough, right? So what we want to do is do 3 things. Most important is safety, right? Cleanliness, and then activation. Having activities to do to bring people in. And that requires effort. So Waikiki Improvement Association have kind of broadened their goal as they gotten more successful. They've worked with the homeless there. They now have social workers that help the homeless out of the situations that they're in, or put them into shelters. They take care of cleanliness. They take care of graffiti. I mean, like you see one graffiti, it's gone within an hour, because the improvement district is providing that, and it's at a very low cost. The more property owners participate, the better it will be, less costly it will be. So I think it's going to be less than half a cent, like 0.07 cents per square foot for owners to participate in this improvement district. So I, along with 40 other owners, have met, and we've been meeting over the last year, led by a gentleman named Kober Matsumoto and Christopher Fong. And they don't even own properties in downtown, but they thought a need, and Hawaii Business is assisting with that effort, and we're participating. And as a big owner, we can really help move that along with other larger owners.
I want to just touch upon one of the projects that you also mentioned, and that's what's happening at Davies Pacific. It was slated for a development for condominium and living in there. What can you tell us about what's happening with that project specifically? And then maybe also lead into what your plans is also with Toper Tower, your another project that you were working on.
Sure. So we bought the property in February of 2023, and we had intended to make that into condominiums. And so we spent the good part of the year relocating all the tenants. And so a lot of the office buildings surrounding us, they had a bonanza because all the tenants started moving to their facilities. And so it's fuller, and we were emptier, meaning we spent the last year and a half emptying out the building in anticipation of building condominiums, which is residential. However, I think I mentioned to you that we've been able to change the law, but not fast enough. We needed that law changed, a year ago. We needed to start construction, 6 months ago, but it didn't. But the beauty of being an entity like Avalon Group is that I'm the decision maker. I can pivot very quickly. I do have a set of investors who give us timelines to deliver. And so we've had to pivot, and we're now looking at other uses that may include residential, it may include hotel, it may include retail. So there's a whole bunch of things that have already been in motion with the key of activation in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
what about
with
Topa?
Topa, there are 2 towers. So I've already announced that 1 tower will remain as office, and that's the Bishop Tower. The 4th Street Tower, we're looking for opportunities where there might be some vacant floors, and so we want to consolidate the vacant floors. And once we consolidate maybe 4, 5, 6 floors of it, it might turn into residential or other uses. And so we're working on that. But right now, the property is thriving. It's almost full, and it's generating a good level of income for us. And so what we decided to do is the first phase of that project is reinvigorating the retail on the ground floor. So you'll see that.
We're talking about it, and it's literally right behind your head as you talk about the Topa Tower. It is like right there behind your head. But yeah. With our Honolulu skyline.
I want to ask, sort of more broadly, kind of ending where we started, which is this whole concept of why downtown. And, I just hear tremendous optimism from you. Obviously, we're talking about investments of hundreds of millions of dollars from your developer, your group, but then also some of the others that you referenced. How long do you think this transformation will take, and what do you envision downtown feeling like? What will DOHO actually be at some point?
DOHO, downtown Honolulu. I mean, it could be DTHNL, but we said DOHO was better sounding. We believe it's going to take 5 to 7 years for us to actually realize our vision, but some are going to happen much faster, like Hawaii Pacific University, like the pickles at Forte, like the garage at Forte, and the Via Modea, the retail concept of Davies Pacific Center, and then the retail concept that we're working on for the Topa on the ground floor. And then we want to make that into a visitor's destination where there will be, in addition to the activities of the pickleball, we're looking at an improv and comedy club. We're looking at, dedicated comedy club for Honolulu. We're looking at, mural walls. If you've ever been to San Antonio and you see the church wall that has the artwork that's been, cadenced to music of that locality, we think there's a lot of Hawaiian arts to feature. And then if you want to see moving murals at night, you would go to downtown for that in any one of our walls. We'd like to change the signage requirements because downtown is burdened with the same signage requirements of Waikiki or other areas that there's a lot of protectionism, but downtown is filled with high-rises. It's an urban setting like any other major city. What we'd like to see is the signage ordinances change, along with building ordinances that are changed specific to Downtown Improvement District that makes it into a 24 city that is thriving, safe, clean, affordable, and accessible, and that the locals can come back again. And so what I see that happening, if I can move it as quickly as possible, 3 years, but I think more like 5 years. I know that the reason why I say 5 years is that here we are in 2025, excuse me. The rail is going to be completed in 2031. If we're lucky, they might be done by 2030. But in downtown, as it reaches downtown and city center, which is the last stop, it's going to be done in 2031, right? 2031 is when you're going to see major changes. The destination from airport to downtown.
Okay, it all integrates together. What an exciting conversation. Thank you so much. And pickleball in what, 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks.
Yeah, there we go. Exciting.
Christine Camp, thanks for being here. Thank you for being here. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
From the moment you wake up.
Hawaii News Now brings you the stories that impact your day.
With more on the breaking news, we go live to Casey Lund.
Ready with the push alert? I'm going live.
We have an update to the breaking news we brought you this morning on Sunrise.
Okay, guys, as soon as this wraps, toss to Mahia.
And we've been covering this story all day.
Now we go live to Mahia for a new development.
Stand by for breaking news. They just captured the suspect.
That's confirmed.
Yes, sources just confirmed it.
The news you need the moment it breaks.
Here on Hawaii News Now.
Spotlight Now with Yunji Denise and Ryan Kalei-Suchi. Connecting you with newsmakers from throughout our islands. Going in depth with Hawaii's leaders. And taking your questions live. Spotlight Now, where Hawaii comes to talk.
Well, great conversation here to start off 2025. We got caught up with what's happening at the rail with Laurie Kahikina going into details about where things stand, about the optimism for the project moving forward. She was unable to give details about the lawsuit, but says that they continue to work closely with Hitachi and something that we'll continue to watch over the next few months and years.
Yeah, and very interesting also to hear from our second guest, Christine Camp, about all the exciting development happening downtown. So much optimism and really that integrating with the rail project. Next week, the governor will be back from D.C. He'll be joining us along with DOT Director Ed Sniffen. We hope you'll join us as well. Until then, we leave you with this live look of downtown Honolulu looking out toward the Reef Runway.